Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes here today. We're having another episode of Roundup with Matt from New Hampshire. It's going to be a great episode, and you're not going to believe this. He runs his mowers over 4,000 hours long, and he did this only because his first time he started his lawn care business, he got new equipment, new trucks, the whole 9 yards, went into debt, and then 2008 came and he lost everything. Everything got repossessed, and a few years later, he had to restart the business, doing it using used trucks, paying things off, and not going into a bunch of debt. I understand debt can be used in a positive way. It can be used to scale up, and you're going to see how Matt's idea of debt has changed, but I want you to focus on just how much truth there is to the fact that new mowers, new equipment, they still need maintenance, they still need tires changed, and still need fuel and all the rest of it. So I want you to listen to today's episode and hear from someone that is using mowers for 2,000 to 4,000 hours before they get rid of them. And when they sell them, they're selling them for more than what they bought them for after they fix them up. So really looking forward to today's episodes. I think there's a lot to learn if you're just getting started, how not to start your business, and then what steps Matt made so that he could actually turn the business around and make it successful. Here we go. Cool. So maybe talk a little bit about how you got into lawn care and why you started the business.
Oh, geez. We're talking back almost 20 years ago. I started in 2002, and I was actually building a house, and I got into an accident and kind of screwed up my inner ear, which caused vertigo for life now. And I was actually installing the roof on this house, 3 stories up, and I looked down, and a guy pulls in with a lawnmower, and I said, "Wow, I could be working on the ground right now instead of up in the air." Um, and I went out and I physically took my mower I had at home and went and started mowing lawns a week later. Um, I made a lot of mistakes on that business. I ran that for almost 6 years, and I lost everything that I owned. I financed everything from trucks to mowers to a house to cars to I was the typical broke person just trying to make my bills.
And so from the roofing company, were you owning that company or were you working as an employee for that business?
I I owned a handyman business and ended up got I kind of got roped into building a house for a friend of mine,
Got it.
and we did everything. I framed the house from the ground up, and it was at the point that I was doing the roof, and where I'd gotten into a small car accident, and it caused um, I, I I was constantly dizzy,
Mm-hmm.
and I shut that business down kind of quickly. I still had it on the back burner. I made a little money here and there to fill in the gaps, income gaps with starting a new business.
Mm-hmm. And then for those 6 years, was it mostly you by yourself working? And then why do you think that it did so poorly during that period of time with the initial kind of the mowing side of things?
So I knew nothing about it. I was a hammer and nail kind of bang and go. I started by myself. The first year I probably did $10,000. I mean, it was just a pushing a mower. And then I got a little cocky and said, "Oh, I'm going to buy a bigger mower." So I went out and spent $30,000 on 2 mowers. I bought 2 trucks, and I hired my first employee, who really wasn't an employee; it was cash under the table. As you know, I think we all start that way. Um, he never actually became an employee. It was always there was never a clear motive as to what we were doing. Um, I didn't have a clear path because I didn't know what I was doing. So we just kind of muscled through the days, and I never really made a lot of money doing it. And then, of course, in 2008, when we had the whole real estate crash, I lost my house and slowly watched every part of my business go away as the bank wanted it more than I did.
And so how at that period of time, how much do you remember how much you were owing to the bank in terms of equipment and trucks and stuff like that?
Over 100,000, 120, maybe 130,000.
And
Yeah.
then when did you kind of realize, okay, like this is not going to work? And then what was sort of the plan of action to rectify that?
So I had to vacate my house, which wasn't repoed. We actually sold it for a loss. We were at a rental house. It was dark out, and the repo man came to take my last truck. That's when I realized I don't know what I'm doing here.
Mhm.
um,
And
and
then
then
from there, did you start to build it in a different way? What did you kind of change as you begin to grow from there?
I walked away from it completely.
Mm.
I went and I worked for a home improvement company, or like a hardware store. I worked there for a couple of years and decided that I wanted to be outside. I've always been an outside person. I just want to be outside. And I started looking at the largest landscape companies in the area just for a job. And I had interviews with all of them, I had offers from all of them, and I went and I worked for the largest company in the area. I worked for them for 3 years. I got some really good training there and understood what I was doing wrong in my business because I didn't know anything I was doing. I wasn't cutting lawns right. I wasn't doing it at the right times. I wasn't keeping up with my customers. The customer service was poor, and bookkeeping, everything was poor about it. Um, and the company went through some changes, and I decided it was time to go back out on my own with some new knowledge.
And then at that point, what year was that? And what were things that you like, decide, hey, look, I've learned from this bigger company that I actually have to implement in terms of, like you mentioned, potentially even when to mow, how
Mhm.
to mow, but even from a system side specifically, were there things you're like, hey, like, I did this wrong, I got it, and but from day one, I'm making these specific changes.
So from day one, I went out with the mindset of I'm gonna serve a premium product, which I didn't know what that was before. Uh, Making a schedule, having a route, following that route, week to week. Mondays you're mowing these lawns, Tuesdays you're mowing these lawns. I never had that. I just went out when I needed to go out and mowed. Um, Having a good clear path, so if I hired somebody else, I could tell them what we're doing along with so we're all on the same page. Um, and like I said, I learned a lot of technique there, but I also learned a little bit of the back side of the store, the business. Um, I never really was involved in the backside. It was such a big company. I ran a mow truck, and I went out. I mowed for 60 hours a week.
And did most of the customers that you initially got kind of on your second go come from your initial business, or were they just brand new and you had to kind of restart the whole marketing engine?
Well, apparently, I made about a bunch of people mad the first time because I closed up shop pretty quick.
Mm.
But one of my first customers going back in was one of my oldest customers I had originally, and it kind of spiraled. Once people realized I was back in business, um, they hired me. They started hiring me. The first year I did it part time. I worked another job. I mean, I did very minimal, but I was building up. I knew what I was building. I was going further. I wasn't going to stay and working for somebody and do this part time. So that year I worked alone, and I probably it's funny. I worked out of my Dodge Caravan, and I had a little trailer that I towed my Walker mower. I think the mower was worth more than the Caravan was.
And so when you're kind of purchasing things for that next go at things,
Mhm.
what was your mindset in terms of, obviously the first time there was a lot of debt, you got a lot of things new. It sounds like you got now a used van and you're towing the trailer around using that. What was the
Mhm.
mindset in terms of, was it a matter of, do you think you kind of needed to be humbled down a bit to then restart, or was it a matter of like financially it's just completely you did not have enough jobs? Like, why did it fail the first time? Because a lot of people go out and buy two trucks and two setups. Like, why did it not? Why did it not work the first time versus what you did the second time?
Well, I went through a course I don't know if I should say his name here, but I went through a course that really taught me how to live debt free. And we cleaned up our lives. We cleaned up our credit card debts. I came into this business owing no money. And I've had the mindset of the whole time owing no money. I started purchasing equipment. I bought the first mower with cash. It was used. It was $3,000 for a mower, um, and I've since slowly bought everything cash. It's only recently this year that I bought one piece of equipment on credit, but my business outweighs the whole. It's an $18,000 credit. It's not a huge purchase. Um, but I've got to the point. I have 6 mowers. I've got 4 trucks. I've got everything is used. Everything is older. I work on everything myself. I can repair. I can maintain. It just has worked really well. And to come through as far as I've gotten and have only $18,000 in debt, I think I'm doing pretty good.
What has that done for even your family and just yourself in terms of kind of peace of mind, knowing that the company is where it's at now versus even, 10, 15 years ago when things were kind of falling apart and knowing all that debt was there. What has that done for you even personally and in your family life?
Man, it's made a huge, huge difference. I still don't pay myself much because I put a lot back into the business. But as far as personal life, my wife can rest at ease knowing that we can pay the bills. We're not chasing the payments down on every credit card and this loan and that loan and that. It's more at peace. If I buy a piece of equipment, I buy a piece of equipment because I have the money. There's less question as far as where we're going. We know both where we're going. We're building a business. The business is an asset in itself, and it's not a burden. Before it was a huge burden. It's like you're putting out thousands of dollars a month for payments, and maybe I didn't even make that every month. You go through the winter time, and you're making all these payments on mowers. You're not using them. It made a real big difference at home.
Hey, thanks for listening to the episode so far. If you haven't already, check out lawncaremedia.com. We have templates available, door hangers, postcards, and much more so that you can plug and play with your own information and find new customers in your area. Go ahead and check us out at lawncaremedia.com. Enjoy the episode.
And now you said you have 4 trucks, 6
Mhm.
mowers. Tell us a little bit how your approach has changed in terms of employing people after going to that big company, seeing how they operate things, and then what did you bring over to the second kind of go at things that from an employee and finding new hires?
So new hires, that's a whole new thing these days. That's my January project. I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that this year. Um, I have currently 5 employees. They're on standby. Most of them work part time over the winter, and then they work when we have snowstorms. We've had 2 snowstorms this year, so they're working somewhere else mostly. um, as far as hiring, I've learned that working in teams of 2 people work really well. The company that I worked for had teams of 1, 2, and 3 people. 3 people is good if you have really large jobs. 2 people is really good. It's the most efficient way that we found to work, and it's the safest as well. If you send 2 people out and somebody gets hurt, there's the other person that can pick up the pace or call 911 or whatever needs to happen.
And now, are you mostly doing mowing, or have you started to branch into some other services as well?
I branched out to everything. I was the typical, I wanted to do everything when I started again, right? We have since dropped down to maintenance. All we do, lawn maintenance, bed maintenance, bush maintenance, mulching, that type of stuff, and obviously plowing in the winter. I got spread too thin with trying to do irrigation and trying to install patios and it's too much to do at once. Um, it's a lot of expense on equipment. It's a lot of just your money's too thin. And we focus on one thing. I can train people in one area. They can learn and we get more proficient at it. And I've found profit wise that it works better for us.
And from a cost standpoint, this past year, as it's been harder to find employees, but even just the cost of everything going up, have you been
Mhm.
raising your prices on an hourly basis? Have you been adding those fees, any sort of fees back in that have been new even in the past 12, 24 months?
So I watched one of your videos on raising prices, which was really inspiring. One, I don't know, in the middle of summer this year, where I did a blanket price raise. There was customers that were under $50 got a $5 raise, over $50 got a $10 raise.
Mhm.
It was simple. It was easy to explain. It was easy to write an email for, and I lost one customer.
Probably not
And
one, anyways.
what's that?
Probably not one that was super pleasant anyways. So,
Oh yeah, they're usually the first to go, right?
yeah. That's awesome.
So
And one thing you had mentioned in talking before the show, and that is about kind of been fixing up some equipment and actually selling it. How does that
mhm.
work? And I know for some people out there that are more handy or mechanically inclined, it might be of interest to them. How have you done that to kind of stay busy through projects, or is it something you just enjoy doing? And what's kind of your process for being able to make some money doing that?
Well, so back up to when I was growing up, we had a town dump, and you go every week and you pick up something that was broken from somebody else. You fix it up and you sell it in the front yard. I kind of have the same mentality. I'll buy a mower, I'll fix it up, I'll run it, and I'll sell it. I generally sell it for more than I bought it for, but I ran it for 2 or 3 years. It allows me to go pick up another mower and fix it up, do the same thing. I think my newest mower is 10 years old, but it's kind of a supplement because I do that in the winter. I can do. I mean, there's not a lot going on around here. Once it snows, and we're not doing anything. So I do fill my time with that during the winter, and then in the springtime when everybody wants a mower, I can sell a couple mowers and then go buy something newer.
I always laugh, like if you look at the mowers today versus say 10 years ago, like
Yeah,
there's always the bells and the whistles, and the seat is softer, and now you have USB charging ports. But like overall, they're actually
yeah,
pretty similar in terms of what they do.
yeah.
But what's kind of your sweet spot in terms of hours and perhaps age, years old that you're looking to buy, and then when is it like, okay, it is too old, and like little, like I think a lot of people their comeback would be like, well, I don't want belts breaking or little wiring things going wrong. Like when does it hit the point where like, okay, this is too far beyond where I can use it commercially and I should just go sell it?
The funny thing is, I find I think back when I had new mowers, I was replacing belts, I was replacing bearings, I was greasing them, I was replacing tires, I still had to put gas in them, and I still had to change the oil. So most of my mowers right now are between 2 and 4,000 hours on them,
Wow.
and I don't mind that. The mower that has 4,000 hours on it got an engine in 1,000 hours ago.
Wow.
There's a few major components. The time that I'll turn a mower away is when the metal starts fatiguing on like the deck. If the blades aren't going to hold in straight and they're just not going to, it's not going to mow correctly, it's time to either move it to a homeowner or the graveyard for mowers.
Mhm. And so, wow, 4,000 hours. Is that on walkers then?
Yeah, I have mostly walkers right now. Um, yeah, I think the youngest walker we have has 1,400 hours on it.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. See, most people, like I talk to people, like once it's 1,000, we're getting new ones. So it's refreshing.
It's yeah, I used to have that mentality, but again, on a new one, at 400 hours, you're starting to replace all that stuff.
Yeah.
Every year, I replace all the belts because new belts are new belts. Sometimes you have to replace the pulleys so it doesn't tear up the belts. But the amount of money I spend on my mowers, I spend maybe $1,000 a year per mower.
Hmm.
And compared to that, when I had a $300 a month payment for my mower, which is better in my book?
Right.
I'll spend $1,000 a year and just keep running them until they're physically can't hold themselves together anymore.
That's awesome. I know this year you did around 300,000 revenue, but going forward, kind of the vision. I know you mentioned, hey, getting to 1 million. What's kind of the process? What are you going to be doing to get to that point? And do you think what are the constraints? Is it mostly just finding people?
A little bit of finding people. like I said, that's January's project. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't think any of us really know how we're going to do that. But just really having a clear mission, a clear statement, a clear path. Kind of think back into the early part of my days. I didn't have a full clear path. I still don't. I'm working on that clear path. So that when somebody comes to work for me, they can see there's a clear path to the top. Hey, I could be a manager someday. How can I do that? Well, here's your blueprint of how to become a manager. My whole idea is to have it in writing, very clear. My next goal, it's funny because I've only been increasing about 30% per year. This year, we tripled from last year. And next year, I want to get to the 5, maybe 600 mark. If I can close to double the business, I'll be happy. But it is going to take personnel. And it may take purchasing some new equipment, which is kind of out of my wheelhouse. And actually getting the equipment this year is going to be a little bit tougher, just as last year was.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time, Matt. And if people wanted to reach out to you or potentially maybe even close by, where can they reach out to you at?
I have a website, grandscapers.net. And I have, the website is probably the best way.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate it, Matt. I wish you all the best in 2022, and maybe we'll check in after this coming year and see if you're able to get that past that 500,000 marker. Thanks so much for tuning in today to another episode of Roundup. If that was something interesting to you and you learned something, comment below, share the message with other landscapers so we as a community can come together and learn and grow our businesses. If you would like to be on the Roundup show and actually interview with me, just like we did today, feel free to go in the description. There's a link there, fill out the form, and we'd love to talk to you if you are wanting to share with the industry and help other people grow their business. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.